Hello. Good to see you. And I think it's going. I think I'm on. Okay.
You
All right.
On the projector, and you got the microphone if you need it.
Can y'all hear me okay back there? Can you? I tend, if I pick up this microphone, I'm going to throw down a beat and start rapping or something. And so maybe I will, maybe I won't.
Look it on, man. It's not looking at you though.
Oh, it's not going there? So aged?
Won't do something wrong here.
Maybe. 2SU ED. Oh, lowercase d.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello. Yeah. You got the whole stuff. All right.
Good to see you.
All right, so here we are. Spring break has officially took place, and I want to welcome everyone back. At the beginning of the session, Ms. Brock's announcements about the recess. Guys, please be careful with those around her. She's not trying to be funny. She's just trying to be able to breathe. So, we're getting this school year kicked off. There was a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of passion, a lot of effort in place. Math is back. Okay. And so, with that being said, though, as educators, this is that time of year where you put forth everything you got. That final curve, we're coming around to that straightaway, to that finish line. And this is all that work that the state's going to be testing to see what have we done. Whether it be UIL coming up. Here we go. We got a lot of things happening. But I want you to know this, that the points that are getting ready to be made, and we have a special guest on our campus. If you do not know, this is Dr. Galinsky. I've had the opportunity to work alongside of him for several years now. And no matter what time period it is in the year where we're at, he constantly has the same passion for student-driven performance. I had the honor of seeing him present for us a couple of weeks ago. And I asked him if he could come and share this presentation with us. And I want everybody to take part in it and make sure we give 100% and give him our undivided attention, because this is something for every educator, period. You shouldn't start charging for this. I don't want to hype it up. I'm just... but I really want you to make sure you take this in, take it to heart. And if you have any questions along the way, please go along with them. Without any further introduction, Dr. Galinsky.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, Mr. McAdoo and I, we kind of have this mutual appreciation society among the two of us, because let me tell you, I really admire this guy for his leadership and his enthusiasm, for his eagerness to support students, and just he has this laid back, cool kind of vibe that I just really appreciate. And so let's return it and give him a big round of applause. Now, I am Robert Galinsky. I'm the Social Studies Content Specialist for Waco ISD. Some of you, through the years, I've worked with in a variety of ways through social studies, but the information that I'm sharing with you today is not social studies specific. It's learning specific. And so I hope that as we talk, as we interact with the content that I'm presenting today, you find ways to apply these principles to your area, your content, whatever you teach. And so let me just thank you. You know, it's not easy coming back on the Monday after spring break. Anybody wish they'd had a few more days? Anybody wish that you could have slept in just a little bit more? I I am one of those, perhaps you are too, that I look at spring break not by how much rest I get, but how many things that I get done on my to-do list. Anybody? Don't admit it. Put away Christmas decorations over spring break. My family's done that before. Yeah. But I had lots of friends on social media, showing all the cool places they went, over spring break. And I'm like, we stayed at home. I bought my daughter, my 16-year-old little girl, a car. And a car. And I did work in the yard. And so if you want to see the cool pictures of the lawn that I mowed or the trees that I trimmed or what, just let me know and I'll be glad to show you. So let me start, if I can get this to work, by getting you involved by asking you to do this. You either have an index card or a Post-it note on your table. What I want you to do, please, is write down on that a personal learning experience that you know you will never forget. Could be something that happened when you were in elementary school, high school, college. Somebody this morning wrote about the time they got a ticket. Yeah, so write down, please, a personal learning experience that you know that you will never forget. And then as you write that down, take a little bit of time with your shoulder buddy there and kind of share that story. Talk out and talk about what you remember and recall about that very personal learning experience. Go. I'll give you about 5 minutes to do this, please. So nice to see you, young lady.
How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Doing fine. Good to see y'all.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Things going all right?
They are. Great.
I hope this is good. You let me know, okay? All right.
Well, if I can remember.
Okay. Yeah. How are you?
Good.
It is so nice to see your smiling face. Math treating you right?
Yes.
Good,
Yes.
good.
It's not as laid back though as social studies.
Well, you put me and Sarah in a room. There's a little bit of a difference, but she gets the job done.
Yes,
She's
she
good.
does. She does. No,
Is this math right here? See, I miss you where you are too. I never get to see you very much.
I know.
Yeah.
I switched back to math.
Yes. Well, that's a good place for you, isn't it? Yeah. And you teach math as well? Thank you, math teachers, for what you do. Hey, sir, how are you? I'm doing well.
Good.
Stuff you know you'll never forget, right?
Does this have to be something someone taught us?
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. Not necessarily at all. How you doing? Good to see you. Robert Glenski. Nice to meet you. Nice to see you. I hope you have a good experience in here today. What do you teach?
Sixth grade.
I need to come in and
He's replacing Miss Trejo.
so when did Miss Trejo leave?
In December, like
Okay.
last day.
All right. Well, it's nice to have you. Welcome to our social studies department. Things going well for you?
Yep. So far, we've doubled the passing rate. They went from like 25% to
Yeah.
after the first 4, it ranged anywhere from like 49% to about 65%. Last one was 57. We got the, what do you call it, meets grade level, about 25%.
Yes, yes.
We got 15 and 20 master's grade level. So a bunch of kids in Vixen recommend for the AP, pre-AP program, because they weren't scoring that in the fall.
Yes.
We got some smart kids over here.
Yeah.
That's when we continue work. So I was at department chair at Social Studies in a private school. I got a master's in history and a JD. So
Well,
this is my area of expertise.
I look forward to getting back over here and visiting with y'all.
She's been a great mentor.
She is terrific. She really is. She is. Thank you. All right, I'll touch base with you on a little bit. Okay, about one more minute. One more minute to wrap up, please.
You probably remember it more because you stumbled upon it, like, oh, I didn't need to do this, and then I did not have it right. Yeah.
And I tell you what, let's get back together in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, that's good. Thank you very much. All right, so let me tell you what I just saw. I saw people telling stories and sharing experiences that were meaningful to you. Things that you will never forget. Things that cause you to laugh. Things that all bunch together. You know, our memories, our experiences are those that make us who we are. And I want to remind you as we go through this that maybe we don't remember those things as much as we ought to in our day-to-day. Let me introduce you to somebody. Yeah, you see the resemblance there? It's uncanny, isn't it? That is my 3rd grade school picture. Little Robert Glinski. And I show that picture to you to say that everything that we do ought to be based on what is best for students. Everything that we say, everything that we want them to know, it should be student-centered, and we ought to remember that for many of our students, we are the smartest person they'll ever know. You see, what you may not know is that little guy grew up quite poor. That little guy grew up in a home that was quite dysfunctional. You know, our students have experiences like that, don't they? And a lot of times we use that very polite word, poverty, but poverty is an economic condition. And the thing that we are addressing really is a range of dysfunctions that our students come from every morning. They'll be there with you tomorrow. I saw in my home things that were quite abusive. Saw drug use, alcoholism, many things. You know, the family that put the fun in dysfunctional? Well, that wasn't us. They must have lived somewhere else. Because there was nothing fun about that experience at home. That furniture out in the yard, the Doberman tied to the tree, the yelling. It was an experience that helped shape me in a way that was very profound. And school was, for me then, my safe harbor. You see, I'll tell you, the thing about growing up in a dysfunctional home is in order to offset that experience, we need an environment that is highly functional at school. Which means that we have good people doing the right thing for the right reasons and employing things that work. things that penetrate and make a difference in the lives of our students. Sometimes it seems impossible to be able to do those things, but what I want you to know as someone who sat in those classes is people are watching you and learning from you and remembering the way you not only teach your craft, but the way you solve the problems, the way you interact with them. And those experiences are meaningful to them. So, the greatest gift you can give someone is a beautiful moment that lasts forever. And you know what? You don't have to define that because they do. Think of that. And so here's the objective for today. Today we're going to identify key practices that promote long-term memory. And I'll say that it is my hope that this instruction today profoundly influences the way you approach teaching and learning. Because it's really something that we never talk about. You see, as a social studies guy, I always get this challenge that we take a test in May over stuff that we have taught all through the year. And you probably know in your discipline, because my social studies folks do, is what they remembered in September and October, they lose right away. And we've got to come up with practices at the end of the year to reteach it. Are y'all feeling that no matter what you teach now? And so, we rarely ever, it occurred to me, talk about if they keep forgetting things. How do we approach instruction in a way that makes it more memorable? How do we approach instruction in a way that puts it in there so that they get it and keep it so they can use it? So first I want to do this. I want you to think about what happens when we think. We use that term an awful lot. We'll say think. But it's really hard, as educators even, to put those actions into some kind of language. And so I want you to just dwell on that for a moment. What happens inside when we think? And how would you put that into words? Take a minute, talk it out with your neighbor. And it's a tough one, isn't it? Educated teachers. It's a tough one. And I want to see how you address that.
Pull up thoughts that you had about other things. Combine them with whatever you're being told to think about. Personal experience.
Susan Duty, that's very profound. That's it.
I know. I'm thinking about when I think. I'm like, I take all this stuff already.
Yeah. Yeah. Good thing no one always asks us what we're thinking. All right, let's come back together in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'll tell you, if you in your class, as we approach the spring of the year, don't have a good attention-getting signal that works, get one. It's so necessary to be able to allow that kind of collaboration and then bring everybody back in a way that they respond. And you're quite responsive, and so thank you for that. If someone told you, I don't want you to go on the line, but if someone told you a good response to that question that you feel comfortable with sharing, raise your hand and we'll call on somebody. Please. Oh yeah, if he told you, you share his. Yeah, see? That's good. Yeah.
I thought he said that what happens when you think is you recall something that you've experienced personally, that you made a connection to.
Mm-hmm.
So that helps you recall whatever it is you're trying to recall or whatever you're thinking about. You have a personal experience.
See, I like that. You're using that recall as though you're taking it from somewhere and using it here now. That's good. That's good. Somebody else. I'm going to build on that. Somebody else. Yes, sir.
Yeah, my partner said, talk about connection. Make it connect to something else.
Ah. Okay. See, that connection is crucial. Let me share with you briefly how I put it to a room full of instructional specialists back in October, November. Thinking occurs when sensory experience, incoming information, takes the hand of schema, there you go, and together they dance. You see there? I like that you like that. Together they dance. And the quality of the dance, the more meaningful the dance, the more memorable the experience. Yeah. I tell you what, if you see something, write it down. If you're somebody on Twitter, tweet that out. The more meaningful the dance, the more memorable the experience. And I tell you what, here's what you know in your classes. Some of the dancing looks like little Robert at that sock hop in junior high school, you know, got that little white guy shuffle, you see? And some of the dances are beautiful, synchronized works of art. And so our job as educators is to address that thinking and help them grow by teaching them dance steps. Now I'll tell you, figure 19, compare and contrast, sequencing, finding the main idea, drawing conclusions, making inferences. All of those are very similar, if you don't know, to our social studies process standards. It's just the how to what we do. And so understand that as you look at those students and you look at the quality of the instruction that you provide, how are you teaching them how to dance? So let's look at this. The anatomy of a lesson. And so let's look at that. You've got your input. See, for many times, here's what I see that happens. You've got your reading material. Yeah, you've got your questions here. The students read the information, they go to the questions, they answer the questions, turn them in, get a good grade. Multiple choice, and we walk away with the assumption that they know. And so we insert that thinking in there, and then we say, oh, you don't just do that. You don't just read and look for the answers and fill it out. You got to think. You gotta do the dance, you see. And you've got to connect, there's that word, you've got to connect the new learning with what you already know, and that authenticates it. That makes it real. And then you turn it in and walk out the door. See, I would say that evidence of learning a lot of times is not so much evidence of learning as it is evidence of doing something. It shows that you were present and you've got something to hand in. The real evidence of learning occurs when? Tomorrow, when they walk in, if they can remember it. The real evidence of learning shows on Tuesday when they come back after spring break, right? The real evidence of learning is whether they remember in May what we talked about in October. That's the learning. We have a model that is geared toward output and not necessarily long-term memory. You see? that lesson cycle, I turn it into you, and then I walk away, and chances are, tell me if I'm right, it's been a while, they walk out and they don't think about it again. You see? And so I would politely say that this in one end and out the other is like a bowl of bad chili. So I love that you laugh. My wife told me not to say that again because I said it at the principal's meeting. She said, Robert, don't you dare. And I said, I'm gonna, Jamie, I'm gonna. So like a bowl of bad chili that really does nothing for them. Think about that when you plan your lessons. I'm so glad you laughed at that. And so I want to show you a different model, if I may. I want to show you what Atkinson and Schriffen said, what they called the multi-store model in 1968 about memory. Sometimes you see this called the three-part model. And it says that sensory input, and right now if you look around, this room is filled with sensory input. And you have to be able to take all that input and work it out on things that are due your attention. Your interest determines what goes into your working memory. If I'm doing this right now, your working memory is attending to this session and what we're talking about. That sometimes they call it short-term memory, but most people now call it working memory because that deals with thinking right now. That deals with what we're working with. Let me show you this model. I've got props. All right, so sensory information. You see any variety of sensory input. And I'll tell you, the more you can compound sensory experiences, the more sensory experiences you engage the learner in, the more profound the experience. So sensory input gets taken into what we call working memory. You know what this is? This is the dance floor. This is where we do our thinking. This is where Bloom's lives. This is where that cognitive effort goes to work. You see, that's what you want in your classroom. We should see people dancing cognitively in the classroom. But you see, what it doesn't say is how does what's in your working memory get into your lockbox, your long-term memory. You see, what is the key to getting it from here? Because I can do my ticket out the door right here, right? And you see that if I turn it in from right here, I'm gone and it never reaches in here. And so that is what really I want to work with you on today, is how is it that we take new learning and get it from our working memory into the long-term storage. This is an important slide. And when somebody says it's an important slide, oh, take notes, right? These are the 3 R's of remembering. You've got your recording, your retaining, and your retrieving. See how they use these 2 regions right here? Recording, sometimes it's called encoding. How well you encode that information in working memory. How much importance you invest in that really determines the likelihood that it gets into long term where you retain. And then once it's in long term, the real act of remembering then is evident by the way we can retrieve it and bring it back to working memory. Does that make sense? Talk to your neighbor real quick about how that works and what that really means instructionally. Go ahead. How to the practices that support long-term memory.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Just to play a little bit. It's like updating your dance card. You make wood and you come back and
Yes, exactly. That's right. Yeah, that's it. And let's get you back together in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Is this working? Is it making sense for you? I really hope that it is, because I tell you what, when students don't remember, when students forget what you teach them, something broke down in one of those 3 stages, because they have to work together. You see, either they didn't, remembering is a complex process that requires neurons and dendrites and synapses and the hippocampus. I'm not going to get into all that, but what I will tell you is, for you to record or encode that, you've got to be able to show them that the information is important enough for the hippocampus to say, in spite of everything else, this is something I should remember. Because then that reinforces the remembering process. And so those things where they circled the letter or fill in the box and move on, that really is not enough. That is insufficient to be able to tell your brain that this is important stuff. You have to attend to it. It's like a spouse. You have to make sure that you put in the time to say, this is important to me. And then you have to be able to show them where I want you to keep this stuff. How I want you to be able to use this in a way that you file it and you can go and get it easily. I'll tell you what, if you're like me, you have a desk with stacks. I convinced myself that I was going to make it into the office over spring break and clean up some, but I didn't. I had too much work to do at home. But what I know is there are very organized people that they don't have stacks. When I want something, I've got to go all over the place sorting through it. Some people have that pretty file right there. Maybe you're one of them. They have that nice file where they know exactly where to get it. Part of our jobs as teachers is to help your students go from the pile of stuff that we lay on them to the nice organized drawers that allows them to go to it when they need it. You see, that retaining is very important. And then the retrieving part is, how do we teach it in such a way that it's packaged that upon cue we can go in and bring it back? What are the mnemonic devices? What are the tricks to being able to make that learning portable so it goes back and forth between working and long-term memory? Okay? How do you do that? Well, let's see. Well, I may jump 3 or 4 pages. Let's see. Oh, we were going so well. What happened? Let's go here. All right, so here's what the learning says about retention. From the School of Berkeley, it says the retention requires these 3 things. First of all, we process new information deeply. We maximize those connections between what we have and what is already known, and we situate that learning into an already created framework. That file drawer. And so we talked about those connections. We talked about processing things deeply. There we go. What are those mechanisms then? And this is what I spent my work on in doing research, is we've identified 7 very key mechanisms that help support that process going between working memory, long-term memory, and back. Frequency, utility, novelty, familiarity, accessibility, meaning, and emotion. Now, I think I owe it to you to elaborate on these for just a little bit before I turn you loose on your part of it. Let's look at frequency for a moment. Frequency is that mainstay. The more you move something back and forth between working memory and long-term memory, it reinforces that. That pathway between the neurons goes from a path to a trail, to a street, to a highway, to a superhighway. You see, repetition has a way of doing that. And that's what we do. We give flashcards, we give frequent test opportunities, quizzes at the end of a lesson, recurring quizzes throughout the unit. That just continues to bring that information from the store into their working memory. And the more you do that, the more students seem to remember it. Anchor charts work, flashcards work, folder centers, word walls, helps them to remember. The more they see it, it reinforces. Now, utility. Here's what I know. In order for you to want to remember this information, it has to be useful to you. Right now, and ever since the beginning of this session, y'all were probably thinking, how is this useful to me? How does it satisfy a need that I have? And the more you believe that it's useful, it has a utility toward your needs, the more it reinforces as an important thing to remember. If I were talking today about the mechanics of rebuilding a carburetor, some of you honestly would have already checked out, because that's not useful information. You don't have that prior knowledge in a way that's meaningful. So teaching students that this is important because is crucial. When those students ask you, why do we have to know this? I'm going to suggest in your PLCs you talk about that answer. Because they deserve one, don't they? And so, why do we have to know this is an important question that we need not run from. How is this information useful to me? Novelty. Oh, I like this. You see, I love teaching. As if you can't tell that today, I really love teaching, because students would come into my class and never know what in the world we would do today. See, I like keeping them on their toes that way. By now, in a lot of classes, students have kind of figured out the script. Well, we do this, and then we do that, and then we do that. And I'll tell you, as someone that goes into classes throughout the district, with social studies of all things tend to get a little boring sometimes. And if they're bored for us, perhaps they're bored for you too. If they're bored for us, they are boring for them. And so asking, how can I make this a novel experience, is a very important thing. I'll tell you a story real quick. When I was in 5th grade, had this teacher, Lana Line, L-I-N-E. And Miss Line, when I was that big, was a full 6 foot tall. And she had bright red hair. And she was the smartest lady I ever knew. Except my wife, of course. She was the smartest lady I ever knew. And I loved her class. Well, here's what she would do. in the spring of the year, she would take all the little kids and load us up on a bus and take us to her house. Now, as a poor kid, Miss Line lived in a brick house. And you thought, as a poor kid, boy, she got money, Miss Line, she's got it going, right? And so one of the things before she took us in the house is she would have us all sit on her front lawn. And there we were, about 18 little kids, and Miss Line sitting on the end, and she picks up a stem of grass and she says, Bermuda grass spreads at the joints. And I'm like, Bermuda grass spreads at the joints. Pow. And that was one of those profound memories that I have, because I'll tell you, what Miss Line taught us with that experience and with many is not what to see or what to look at, but how to see. And we were curious. And we were in it. And I don't know, there are probably people sitting there saying, boy, I wish we could get up off this grass. But I was captivated. And so the more you can do to make tomorrow's lesson engaging in a way that maybe some of you, when you wrote down that lesson you'll never forget, was presented to you in such a novel way that's why you remember. Novelty. Familiarity. Because novelty works, familiarity works. That means that all of those things have a place to go. If I know something, then I'm more likely to be able to build on that knowledge because I have that prior knowledge store. That's why at the beginning of your lesson, making sure that you connect today to yesterday or 2 weeks ago now is so crucial, because you're helping them to figure out, where in the world do I put it up there, so they don't have to throw it on the junk pile that is their desk in their mind, you see. Familiarity. Accessibility. What is a way, you see the suitcase symbol, what is the way that I can package this information in such a way that it easily transports between long-term and short-term memory? Now that's like a mnemonic device. Y'all use those. That's like visuals. Gosh, anchor charts, very important, because I see that anchor chart, I recall all of the things that mental model means to me, and it gives me a cue. When I see that, I think this. That Roy G. Biv. Red. Anybody know that? Red, orange, yellow, blue. Yeah, you see? That's how a lot of people remember that. It's just a simple way of seeing that and recalling the information that's below it. I'm going to, Mr. McAdoo, I'm going to throw down a rap that I used to use that helps my students recall the Transcontinental Railroad. Now, I don't know if I can get this mic to work. It might be a really cool experience. Check.
1, 2, 1, 2.
1, 2. Ooh, yeah. All right, so here we go. Get this. Where's that camera? Right there. Come on, baby. Do the locomotion. Gonna ride this train from ocean to ocean. You can ride with me like I wish you would. It's the fast new way to move people and goods. It's the hottest innovation in transportation. Gonna lay my tracks all across the nation. All right. Yeah, thank you. You made me so happy watching you smile right there. What?
Next time you drop the mic.
You see? Oh, yeah. No, I won't do that. But see, it's fun. And look at all of that content, all of that information that students get about the Transcontinental Railroad. Now, I wish I had time to lay some more down on you, but I don't today. But I've got them. So look at ways that you can get students engaged. Can you imagine a class full of students doing that, and then you ask them, what's the Transcontinental Railroad? So that's good stuff. All right. Meaning. This is working memory stuff right here. Meaning is where we spend most of our time. It's the meat and potatoes of what we do in our classrooms. Because I'll tell you what, all of learning is making meaning out of information. I'll say that again in case you're tweeting this out. All of learning is making of meaning of new information. When I was doing my research, it was wonderful. I read that in order to remember something, in order to use something, you have to be able... Wait a minute. Unless you can use and store information, you don't know it. Unless you can store and use information, you do not know it. And so when I found that, I thought that was so profound. You know, you have to be able to understand it in order to use it. Oh, that's it. In order to understand it, you have to store and use the information. In order to understand it, you have to be able to store and use it. And so I went in to my daughter, who's 16, and I said that, and she looked up at me and said, "No duh, Dad." Yeah, you see? And so, but we do that all the time, don't we? We ask students to know stuff and to store it, perhaps, but they don't understand the meaning of it. And so they don't get it back. What strategies promote deep processing of the content? And then the last one's emotion. How do I nurture the effective environment in such a way that situationally students can remember the intensity of the emotion, either happy or sad? Or contextually, I can remember things that went on in this classroom because it was a positive environment in which for me to learn. See, that's very important. I told the group this morning that we talk a lot about Benjamin Bloom in this business, and we know his cognitive domain, right? The knowledge up through. Did you know that Benjamin Bloom also has an affective domain? We never talk about that. See, that is how engaged they are, how students understand it, hold on to it, and add value to the learning. See, that's important too. And I would submit to you that if that does not happen, the other ain't going to. And yet, we look at data that measures all kinds of cognitive ability, but never in our meetings do we talk about what does it feel like in your classroom, and what did your students feel like when you wanted them to learn it. Very important. So, that I would ask you to please consider how can you use emotion in that learning. Now, I'm going to pass these out. Okay, right. There you go. I'm going to pass these out. What I want you to do then is spend about 10 minutes talking about this information with the people at your table and discussing how it is that you can answer, how you can use this information. There are those two questions, very important. What is the most important thing you will take away from this session? And how will you integrate these practices into your planning? Everybody here get one of these? So spend about 10 minutes talking about that, and then we'll all come back together, and I'll wrap this thing up by 2-ish, I promise. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. There you go. You're welcome. Everybody have one? Okay. Oh, look at this. Y'all get the cardstock ones. Somebody left those. Now, if they're on cardstock, they're important. So, all right. Everybody get one? Thank you very much. Well, you want to think about how you can use these practices in your planning. What are some ways that you can do each one of those? Put this here on chest. I'm going to put this here for y'all to use in just a second. I'm going to put this here for y'all to use in just a second. I'm going to put these here. Let me share these with y'all. I'll tell y'all to grab those in just a second. I'm going to let y'all share those. Let y'all share those. I don't have enough for everybody. These may be helpful to you. Here you go. Y'all doing okay? All right. You don't feel left out over here, do you?
No.
Okay. Would y'all share some of those with them as well? All right. Let me have your attention real quick as you're doing this planning. What I want you to do is be able to talk about how you can utilize some of those practices in your lesson planning, but I didn't give you a lot of concrete strategies on what goes with each one of those. I wanted you to take a minute and brainstorm on your own. The packets that I handed out in the manila envelope, what you will see is I have gone through under each one of those categories, and I have given you specific strategies, specific practices that you can use to implement these into your lesson planning. So there should be enough to go around. Please spread those throughout and look at how you can use some of these specific strategies to address some of those 7 principles.
Yeah, so that gives me
I ran out. Let me get that group here to hand some over. Y'all can, excuse me, may I get y'all to share some of these with them? Y'all can just switch out. Here you go. Here's some. Here's those. And I'll just switch out. Thank you. You can also find these that I handed out in the folder. They are right there, accessible to you. Oh dear, let me show you. They're in the folder. They're right there in the folder. How's this going, my friend? Good? Did y'all? There's some. Maybe they can send those down here. So in that, it'll give you some very specific things that you can do for each one of those.
It's more specific than this.
Well, just to help. Is there enough to go around?
Yeah. You also have it on your drive.
Oh, yes, and they're right there in that folder.
Oh, so those things have been discussed.
Ah, good. Y'all found them on the...
Yes.
Good.
Go outside. Do something outside.
Oh, good. Y'all found those in the folder.
Yeah.
Good, good. Were you able to find? Let's see. If you back up into that original folder.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is his.
Oh, okay. And go to classroom practices.
Yeah, I find memory very interesting. I did a little bit of research into neuroplasticity
Yes.
and just general creating new connections. So I'm a band director. So.
Oh, okay. Well, see, that's so
repetition
important
is the
for
mother
you.
of all learning.
That's exactly right.
So
That's it.
I looked at it and I was like,
Oh,
repetition
see?
is the mother of all learning. 7 words sums up all of it.
Yes. Yes, that's exactly right.
So, but no, I mean, to be clear, I mean, repetition's good, but I mean, you can do something over and over and over and over again, and the kids are going to remember that it's a drag.
Yeah, well, repetition over and over again is memorization.
Correct.
And some of this goes a little bit deeper.
But it's not necessarily learning in that you're right. Exactly what you just said.
Right.
You know, you can learn something wrong.
Yes.
You know.
That's exactly
For
right.
instance.
Yes.
So, but yeah, creating that, it's just fascinating.
Yes.
At
Well,
least.
good.
So,
Good. I'm glad it connects with what you already know.
which
How are
is
you
part
doing?
of your.
I'm Robert. Nice to meet you.
Todd.
Todd. All right, and are you in music as well, Todd?
Yeah, I'm one of the band directors.
Okay, good. Well, we were just talking about the role repetition plays and what y'all do.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Good talking to you. Is this working for y'all? Is this helping?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, good.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Good.
I'm an art teacher here, so I'm trying to figure out how to.
see?
Some of these things, I'm like, okay, how do I spin this towards
That's right.
project-based learning?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Well, for you, it's you've got the process of how to do it, but you also twist in there all that creativity and imagination.
Which is great. The only thing I think I struggle with is the utility of it.
Yes.
Most people know that they don't really need it.
Well,
I know
what?
it does help you with growing different parts of your mind.
Well,
and
that-
the people
that's
who have
exactly right.
higher like test scores when they do exercise,
Well,
different ways of thinking.
teach them, please, that to have an expressive mind is a beautiful thing as an adult.
Yeah.
And sometimes we teach them that learning is all about this and answering the test, when learning ought to be expression and finding your voice and developing your skill.
Right.
I draw a little bit, and it's those times that I can get away from everything and
Right.
sit down with my sketch pad that is
Yeah.
just really important. So thank you for what you do as an art teacher.
Yeah, of course, of course.
good.
Yeah, what I think I'm trying to get away from is those kids who I give them an assignment and then they finish it in 5 minutes and I put no effort or time into it.
That's it. That's it. See?
Yeah, those
See?
are the kids that are hard. There's the kids who will spend that like the full project time and then
Yeah.
need extra time because
Yeah,
they're so
yeah.
hard.
No, I got
See?
one more.
Art done well is get to instead of have to.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah,
And
I
however
agree.
you frame that. Good, good. Now, this young lady was in my class. Did she tell you that?
No.
8th grade, Tennyson Middle School. One of my favorites. You're not supposed to have favorites, but I did. Teacher of the Year right there. All right, tell you what, let's bring it all back together in 5. Well, 1. Let's do that. Tell you what I like. I see people sitting there and making connections to what you do, finding that information that's on those sheets valuable to you because you can integrate those into really any lesson, any content area. It's all in how you plan it and present it purposefully. I've got some door prizes here that I want to give away before we move on. I've got a whole box of Airheads, Maybe you can use them as test practice comes, and you can incentivize them in some way after school or during class. I don't know how we, but here are those. I've got a $5 Sonic gift card that's coming, and then watch this. Oh boy, this is the gem of the time I spent working on this during spring break. Look at what I did for you. If you have never gone to IMG Flip to make memes, oh, Nellie, you are in for a treat. That's IMG Flip, and these are memes made by me. My kids, I've got a freshman in college and the 16-year-old daughter, Rory, and I showed them my memes so proud, and they said, "Oh, Dad, those are like so yesterday, but I love them." Here, watch this. Little guy. Little skeptical guy says, "You think I'm going to remember that?" Just laugh even if you don't mean it. This one. If a student can't, this philosophical dinosaur, if a student can't remember it, did they ever even learn it? See? This is my favorite. Little guy, sympathetic eyes, looks up at Daddy, the guy, and he says, "I turned in my ticket out the door, but I can't remember a thing we did." You see? You see? In one end and out the other. All right. This one. One does not simply remember without thinking. See? Isn't that good stuff? Yoda. If one is to remember, provide frequent opportunities to learn, you must. See how I put that at the end, like Yoda? This one. Now, you'll see that some of these aren't laminated, some of them are. If you get this, please notice that right there's the little warning label from the laminator film that tells me to change the roll. And so I only got through 2 of them. And I thought I should just throw that one away, but no, it makes it more fun that way. So if you could tell me how this is useful, well, that would be great. You see. Social studies teachers, that's my business. I have this great PowerPoint. Swat! They won't remember a thing. You see there? Batman slapping Robin. Ouch, I'm sorry. And then this one, I can remember what I understand. Now, I want to be able to give away these wonderful memes to you and the other things. Let me say this. If you are wearing, I'm going to do a sorting process with you. If you are wearing tennis shoes today, please stand up. See? Yeah. Now, if you are wearing blue and tennis shoes, please remain standing. Blue and tennis shoes. Yes. Tennis shoes and you're wearing blue. Okay, there's 2 categories now. Anyone wearing 1 tennis shoes and anyone wearing blue with those tennis shoes, please remain standing.
Those tennis shoes have blue in them.
That's good. That's good. That counts. Now, of those standing, if your birthday is in March, please remain standing. Okay. So watch this. I'm going to do this like this. I am so glad to be able to do that. We didn't plan this. She was in my 8th grade class at Tennyson Middle School. Y'all give her a big round of applause. So I am going to do this. If your birthday is in March and closest to today, raise your hand. What's your birthday?
March 6th.
March 6th. And the 9th. And here? What's today? Oh, So here, decide whether you want the memes or the airheads.
What?
The memes in here that I just presented, or the airheads.
One to Miss Mer and one to Miss Light.
Okay. All right. There we go. Which one do you want? Choose.
Okay. I'll take the memes.
There you go. And there's the airheads. And for you, I have a wonderful Sonic $5 gift card. Y'all give it up for them. There you go. Thank you. Very kind of you. All right. So let's wrap this up by saying this. In the long run, each of us are destined to only one of three fates in the minds of our students. We will be remembered for the good that we have done. We will be remembered for the damage that we have done. Or we will be forgotten. I want to celebrate you by telling you how much people like you have meant to someone like me. Let me finish that story about Miss Lana Line. Through the years, I remained in contact with Miss Line. And we would trade Christmas cards. I would send her one every year, pictures of the kids. And she would write these beautiful, well-crafted letters to me. That was just always a treat to get them. One time she wrote me a poem, because that's a thing that we shared, about buttons. And it was just a real wonderful thing. Well, when I graduated in 2014 with my doctorate degree, I sent out invitations to former teachers that I had maintained a relationship with throughout the course of my adult life. And I sent one to Miss Line, and she was up in age and of poor health, and she couldn't make it to the graduation, but she sent to me a box, a huge box, with 5 smaller boxes in it. And each one was meticulously wrapped with bubble wrap, and it took me forever to get them open. And she accompanied it with this letter. And she describes why she chose each one of those 5 gifts for me at this momentous time in my life. Beautiful. She ended with this. She said, "I'm so happy that I have been allowed to live long enough to see my student surpass his teacher." Yeah. Beautiful. And then she said, "Congratulations from Lana Line." Yeah, I tell you, that relationship between teacher and student is real. And it's available to every one of us. I included in that box was a poem that was framed that she told me had remained on her wall since 1976. Wow. That she was returning to me now. And that just blew me away. That was in 2014 in May. 2015, sent her a card, got a nice letter back. 2016, I sent my Christmas card. And I don't know if you can see this, but what a crushing blow to me. My Christmas card to Mrs. Line was returned. Deceased. I mourn the loss of that lady more than I would a family member, because she meant that much That is the relationship between a teacher and a child. I believe that tomorrow people will fill up your classrooms who need you every bit as much as I needed Lana Line. And I think I honor her memory by challenging you to be for them what she was for me. Brilliant, generous, and unforgettable. Thank you. Let me urge you that bit.ly, all of you had those up on your computers if you did. There is a survey that you could probably take in 5 minutes. Please give me your feedback on how effective this was for you. Tell me some things that I could do better as I present this. I've had a number of opportunities to present, but please do that. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. When you turn in that survey, I've set it up so that you get a bounce back message. And that message is going to give you the web address on Google Drive on how you can get your own bonus set of memes so that you get everything that I just showed you. See there? You see there? And so please do. Your input is important to me. You are a wonderful group. It has been my pleasure to spend time with you today. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Guys, I hope you can see why I asked Dr. Galinsky to share this with us. If you notice, throughout the whole time he spoke, he didn't say one thing about texting. Not one thing. And for me, and I know the reason why Dr. Galinsky does what he does, it's all about one deal. It ain't about a test, man. It's about making sure that when these students come in that door into your classroom, they learn something. Genuinely.